I think any framework that actually helps people identify how they can succeed and make an impact in the world is great. I think too often people say, especially young people now when I coach people around careers and what they're going to do with their lives, a lot of times they don't have a framework in which to move forward. They think there's so many opportunities, for example, and where do they go? So I think any framework that encourages them to persevere, to actually make some sort of an impact in the world, to leverage their network to grow, makes a lot of sense. So I think it's great. In terms of my own leverage of such a framework, I would probably say growing out leadership has required that at every step of the way. When I launched in Europe, I was just sharing the story this other day, actually. When I launched in Europe, we had 11 firms, and I literally got on a plane, went to London, and slept on a sofa of a friend, and went to every bank that I could get myself into and said, we need to have this summit here. And had to convince a few skeptics. And then, now 6 years later, it's an institution. The same thing in Hong Kong. When I went to Asia, there had never been an LGBT summit ever in Asia. And so to march into Hong Kong as an American and say, this is something that needs to be here, but also make sure that it's culturally relevant. The way that we've built all the summits globally is to have a leadership committee that is local. For us to actually make change, you have to inspire people. You have to have them understand how what you're talking about and what you're trying to do connects to what matters to them. It's the ultimate influence model, especially in the diversity and inclusion space, because you can't really have KPIs for companies that you're just going to go sell more widgets, right? It's all about making people either change behavior or reinforce positive behavior. And from a corporate perspective, it's drawing that line from something that you know matters to something that they know matters. And so the ability to actually have that in a sustainable framework, I think, is really important. One example of that, I would say, is HSBC and Barclays hosting our first Asia Summit. And the CEO of Barclays at the time, Anthony Jenkins, was the host, and Stuart Gulliver, the global CEO of HSBC, was hosting the VIP dinner the night before. And while I love the idea that we're getting these competitors to collaborate, they're still actually competing as well, which is great. Leveraging that competitive advantage and that competitive drive for these companies to have them compete against doing better in the LGBT space is actually, I think, a great secret of our success. But one of the outputs of that was that the night before the main summit, HSBC hosted a major VIP dinner with 150 senior leaders from all across Asia, their clients, government leaders. And at the end of the dinner, the CEO stood up and said, I want you to look at these monitors. And they showed the HSBC building. And if you know it in Hong Kong, it's the Norman Foster building, red and white, iconic. It's on the currency. And in 37 years, they had never changed the colors of that building from red and white. And they started playing Rihanna, all of the lights. And I thought, oh, hey, gay summit, right? We're playing Rihanna, how fun. And the video showed the outside of the building and the lights went off. And then 3 seconds later, the lights came back on and they rewired the entire building as a giant rainbow. And they left that rainbow building up in Hong Kong for 4 nights. We later found out that it was the single largest press event HSBC had anywhere in the entire world. And from that one lighting of the building, 5 years later, they've now lit buildings all over the world, including in LGBT unfriendly areas of the world. They actually, this last year, redid the lions that sit in front of the HSBC buildings, Stephen and Stitt, who were iconic for the last 80 years. They rebuilt them and painted them in rainbow colors in feng shui, master sort of advised fashion. And interestingly, there was quite a bit of backlash, and they stood firm, and they said that this was of value to them. And to be able to see that company as just one example, taking that sort of that road that was started by a simple conversation and then a simple dinner to something that's now gone globally. Even their CEO of Taiwan this last year walked an employee down the aisle for her wedding to her wife when her family disowned her. And so the ability and the freedom of these leaders to be able to support their employees and their clients because this is a company and a corporate value set by the CEO and the acts that they're doing in the marketplace is something that I think is a great example of this framework.